Behind the Line, episode 38. I'm your host, KC. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. I appreciate all your support. Here we sit on Friday morning. We are 3 days into the new year. Black Monday is come and gone. Coaches have been hired and fired across the NFL. And finally, I get a notification late Thursday night that the Dallas Cowboys have decided to part ways with Jason Garrett. Now, this was reported by ESPN. Actually, it was reported by Ed Warder at ESPN, who is a Dallas Cowboys insider. So, I'm inclined to believe this is true. I've been getting differing reports all week. Monday, about midday, it was reported by a local TV in Dallas that Jason Garrett was fired. And then it was reported about 20 minutes after that Jason Garrett was not fired. Then it was the entire Cowboys coaching staff was fired. And then it was, the entire coaching staff besides Jason Garrett was fired. So, we don't really know at this point whether or not Jason Garrett is still with the Dallas Cowboys. But because it's being reported by ESPN and Ed Warder, I'm inclined to believe that it's true. And let's just be perfectly honest. This has been a long time coming. We've talked about it on this podcast the entire football season. Jason Garrett is the king of 8-8. He is the king of mediocrity in the NFL. Jerry Jones has given this guy opportunity after opportunity to succeed with the Dallas Cowboys. They have, on paper, one of the most talented rosters in the league. You have a great running back in Ezekiel Elliott. You have Sean Lee, although he always stays hurt, as a captain of that defense. You've got Amari Cooper, who they went and traded for last year. They've got talent on this roster. This Dallas Cowboys team should not be sitting at 8-8. The NFC East was up for grabs this year. The Redskins, terrible. The Giants sucked. The Eagles were so fucking banged up all season. They were begging the Dallas Cowboys to grab a hold and take this division. And they had opportunity after opportunity to do so, and they failed to do it. I mentioned back in November, around Thanksgiving, when they laid that egg against the Buffalo Bills, that this Dallas Cowboys team was not playing hard for Jason Garrett. Now, of course, after the season comes to an end, now all of a sudden, all of the players, Dak Prescott and people like that, want to come out in support of their head coach when they realize, oh shit, we fucked up, we went 8-8, this guy's about to get fired. Now we want to come out in support of him. But it was too late. But the question is, why was this so hard for Jerry Jones to make this decision? I mentioned on Tuesday that Jerry Jones makes business decisions based on emotion. Sometimes that's a good thing. A lot of times it's not. I'm of the opinion that business decisions should never be based on your emotions. But sometimes that's easier said than done. So why did Jerry Jones have such a difficult time letting Jason Garrett go? A decision that everyone knew was the right decision. Everyone knew it, except Jerry Jones. So let's for a moment get into why this was so hard for Jerry Jones. Why it took him nearly a week to make the decision to fire Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's been part of the Dallas Cowboys for 26 years. He was the backup to Troy Aikman during the Jimmy Johnson years in the 90s. During that time, he sat in on coaches' meetings so he could learn what it takes to lead an NFL team from the sideline. Back in 2007, Jerry Jones hired him to be the offensive coordinator. Wade Phillips was the head coach, so in Jerry's eyes, you had the best of both worlds. You had a defensive-minded head coach in Wade Phillips and Jason Garrett, a young upstart offensive coordinator. Then you had the 9.5 years that Jason Garrett was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. So Jerry Jones had a lot of time and money invested into Jason Garrett. He's pretty much watched him grow into the man that he is today. He's become part of the Jones family. Jerry looks at him as one of his own sons. So it's understandable why he had a hard time making this decision. I mean, he allowed Jason Garrett to conduct exit interviews with the players earlier this week. Jason Garrett led the team meeting on Monday with Jerry Jones in attendance. It was said to be very emotional. After that, he met with Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, and then he met with them again on Tuesday. Still, Jerry could not make a decision. He was supposed to meet with Jerry and Stephen Jones Thursday afternoon. The meeting reportedly never took place. They moved forward with the decision to let him go. I mean, the writing was on the wall earlier this week. How often do you see a team fire the entire coaching staff and hang on to the head coach? To my knowledge, I don't think it's ever happened. It's best for Jason Garrett that Jerry and Stephen Jones made this decision right now, because the longer this drug out, the worse it would be for Jason Garrett. There's only a handful of coaching jobs available in the NFL. And really, only one that's available that you can step into immediately and win. The Giants have the talent offensively to compete in 2020. They've got to improve the defense, but they're ahead of Carolina and Cleveland. Now, I know the Browns have more talent, but the problem in Cleveland is the same problem that Jason Garrett just escaped in Dallas: the ownership. And that's a problem that you cannot overcome. So we'll see what happens with the future of Jason Garrett. We'll see what happens with the Dallas Cowboys, who they decide to hire for their head coach. We'll monitor it right here on this podcast. All right, moving on. Antonio Brown is back in the headlines again. AB worked out with the Saints last week. We talked about it on the podcast, I believe, Saturday morning. I said at the time that I felt like this was Sean Payton giving a big fuck you to Roger Goodell, essentially forcing him to finally make a decision in regards to AB's reinstatement into the NFL. Roger Goodell and Sean Payton's relationship has been contentious, you could say, since Bountygate. Then you had that awful pass interference call in last year's NFC Championship game that was missed. It felt to me that Sean Payton had finally found a way to get back at Roger Goodell for fucking with him and the Saints for so many years. Now, I didn't go as far as to say it was a publicity stunt, but that's what Antonio Brown felt it was. Which is kind of odd, considering the source. AB wasn't what I would call disrespectful towards the Saints. And I actually agree with him about this being somewhat of a publicity stunt. But coming from Antonio Brown, it means nothing. Antonio Brown has lost all credibility with me. In a matter of about 6 months, this guy went from being one of the most revered wide receivers in the league, a guy Mike Tomlin loved, had nothing but great things to say about AB. He went from being highly respected to being the laughingstock of the NFL. Antonio Brown said on Instagram, quote, "I really am at peace. I just don't like the lack of respect in the world. Everyone has deadlines, but I guess the NFL don't have a deadline for me. So I appreciate Sean Payton and them guys for supporting me to bring me out to work out. But I think it was a publicity stunt for them. Sean Payton knows the feeling of being left behind, but it is what it is. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to keep competing to be the difference because I know I'm the difference." I say all the time on this podcast when talking about teams struggling to win games, it's not always necessarily the losing. It's how you're losing. I have that same mindset here with Antonio Brown. I actually agree with what he's saying. The NFL, Roger Goodell specifically, has drugged their feet in making a decision on reinstating him into the league. He's never been charged with a crime. Guys who have done much worse were treated better than AB's been treated. But the problem is, because Antonio Brown is the one saying it and bringing attention to it, it holds no weight. People won't listen because of how he's handled the situation. Let's start with the comment, "I just don't like the lack of respect in the world." Really? Respect has to be earned. It's not given. What about the lack of respect that Antonio Brown showed John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders? What about the lack of respect that he gave the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, one of the most highly respected organizations in professional sports? What about the lack of respect he gave Juju Smith-Schuster just the other day on Twitter? Then calling out Sean Payton and the Saints for a publicity stunt. When the past 4 to 5 months, everything AB has done has been a publicity stunt. Hell, he brought his own fucking camera crew to the workout after they told him not to do it. After he was let go by the Patriots, AB realized that he had fucked up. He loved everything about New England, the professionalism, the culture. He told his father that maybe he needs to change what he's doing, since the turmoil surrounding him was the cause of his release. He's changed what he's doing by amping up the ridiculousness and went on a social media campaign against the NFL. One day, he's accusing the league of being racist. The next, he's apologizing for his comments. One day, he's calling out Big Ben. The next, he's apologizing for his comments. Bad exit in Pittsburgh. Bad exit in Oakland. Bad exit in New England. Antonio Brown has become the Dwight Howard of the National Football League. He has every right to be upset about the way that Roger Goodell and the NFL has handled his situation. He's basically lost an entire season of his career over unsubstantiated sexual assault allegations. No charges have ever been filed. He's never been arrested. But the way that he's reacted, the way he's went about trying to get reinstated has been completely wrong. I actually came to his defense when he was released by New England. So I would actually be on Antonio Brown's side if he hadn't sabotaged himself the past 3 or 4 months. It's not the message, it's the messenger. I feel like the reason Roger Goodell and the league have drugged their feet and delayed AB's reinstatement is entirely because of the way he's acted. Think about it. Someone calling you a racist. Someone is bashing you publicly every opportunity they get. Would you be in a hurry to let them back into your league? Fuck no. Now, it was partially a publicity stunt by Sean Payton, working out Antonio Brown. But I really believe they would have signed him if they knew he would be able to play in the playoffs. But because that's unknown, there's no reason to sign him. Even though the Saints have nothing to lose, is it really worth dealing with the media circus, the questions, the headache, at the most important time of year? And Antonio Brown can't even touch the field. All right, moving on. To succeed in the NFL, you've got to have 2 positions right. Everything else can be worked on. But if you don't have 2 positions right, you're not going to win long term. I'm talking about head coach and quarterback. If you've got the right head coach and quarterback, everything else can be masked. Oh, we're deficient at the running back position. That's okay. Drew Brees completes 75% of his passes. Sean Payton's an offensive genius. He'll figure out a way to make it work. The Tennessee Titans realized this season they didn't have the right quarterback in place. It took them 5 or 6 weeks, but they realized that Marcus Mariota was not the answer. Decided to go with Ryan Tannehill. They're in the playoffs because of that decision. Last year, John Harbaugh realized that Joe Flacco was regressing, getting worse. Went with Lamar Jackson mid to late November. Now they're the best team in the league. Made the playoffs last year, number 1 seed in the AFC this year. Smart organizations realize when they have the wrong coach or quarterback in place and make the necessary changes. For years, the New York Giants stuck with Eli Manning because of who he was. He won us 2 Super Bowls. His last name is Manning. For 3 or 4 years, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Yet they stuck with him because of his legacy, because of his last name, because of the 2 Super Bowls. And it was a disaster. The Chargers have come to the realization that Phillip Rivers is no longer Phillip Rivers. They're likely going to move on from him. And it's the right decision. I think Phillip Rivers can still play, but he needs to move on from the Chargers and get to a real contender. One franchise that doesn't realize they have the wrong quarterback is the Chicago Bears. I believe that Matt Nagy is the right coach for this team, but they've got the wrong quarterback, and they're sticking with him. It was reported by ESPN earlier this week that the Bears are committed to Mitchell Trubisky as their starting quarterback in 2020. General Manager Ryan Pace basically said there's no question Trubisky would be the starting quarterback in Chicago next season. But he failed to commit on whether or not the team would exercise their 5th-year option on him in 2021. Apparently, Trubisky played the majority of the season with a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. I don't care. This is the wrong decision. We've seen 3 years of Mitchell Trubisky. I'm yet to be impressed. More importantly, what I saw from him this season tells me he's not cut out to be a franchise quarterback. About midway through the season, the pressure was mounting on the shoulders of Mitchell Trubisky, week after week, and he folded. They were playing the Rams on Sunday Night Football. I believe it was in early mid-November. A game where the Bears managed to score just 7 points offensively. Matt Nagy mercifully pulled Trubisky from the game because he was playing so poorly. And you could see him on the sideline with tears in his eyes and a look of pure defeat on his face. Mitchell Trubisky had a QBR of 40.6 this season. It was 31.6 his rookie year. Chicago's set up to win now. I've talked about this before. Defenses in this league age quickly. 2, 3, maybe 4 years. You'll get elite level play out of your defense. Then it's over. We saw it with the Legion of Boom in Seattle. We saw it with the Jets when Rex Ryan was there, and that defense carried butt fumble Mark Sanchez to a couple of playoff appearances, even an AFC Championship game. You remember Darrelle Revis? For 3 or 4 years, the guy was the best cornerback in the league. Then poof, gone. The Bears are a team that is in win now mode. The window will close before you know it. There are quarterbacks available that are better than Mitchell Trubisky. Cam Newton, Phillip Rivers. Even an aging Phillip Rivers is better than Trubisky. The bottom line is, the Bears don't have time to wait for a 25-year-old Mitchell Trubisky to develop. All right, the NFL playoffs begin Saturday afternoon. I'm going to release my NFL bets on tomorrow's podcast, but today what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the entire playoffs, predict the winner of each game, and eventually my pick to win the Super Bowl. So we're going to start off with the Bills-Texans. Buffalo's been a nice story this year. Sean McDermott has this team headed in the right direction after years of incompetence in Buffalo. This is a young team. They've got the pieces in place. Strong defense, good running game. The Bills haven't won a playoff game since 1995. And that trend will continue one more season. I think the Bills are still 1 year away. The Texans are the more experienced team. Deshaun Watson's the better quarterback. J.J. Watt's expected to return Saturday. It's going to be a hostile environment in Houston. I like the Texans over the Bills. Next up, Titans-Patriots. I hate doubting Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but I like the Titans to go into Foxborough and beat New England. Ryan Tannehill has this offense rolling. No one can stop Derrick Henry in the running game. Tennessee's got a strong defense. The Titans are built to win in cold weather. But more importantly, I think we're on the verge of witnessing the divorce of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think Belichick is ready for Brady to retire, or at least get the fuck out of New England. The offense has struggled all season. I think there's real dissension between coach and quarterback in New England. The Patriots don't have enough weapons offensively to win. I like the Titans in this game. All right, next up, Vikings-Saints. Don't think for a second the Saints have forgotten about the Minneapolis Miracle a couple of years ago when they had Minnesota beaten at home. Even if that weren't the case, the Vikings are no match for New Orleans. Minnesota struggles against the pass. Xavier Rhodes, usually a reliable corner, has struggled all season. Not to mention, New Orleans is damn near unbeatable at home, especially in the playoffs. Saints are 6-1 under Sean Payton in home playoff games, and it took the officials screwing them to get that one loss. Kirk Cousins is 0-1 in the playoffs, never won a playoff game, struggles against winning teams. Saints handle the Vikings. Last game of Wild Card Weekend, Seahawks-Eagles. One good thing that has come from this injury-ravaged season in Philadelphia. The question marks surrounding Carson Wentz have been put to rest. People, myself included, were wondering whether choosing Wentz over Nick Foles was the right decision. What Wentz has done this season, especially the last 5 or 6 weeks, proves that Philadelphia made the right call. That being said, you aren't beating Russell Wilson in January with practice squad players. It's just not happening. Wilson's never lost to Philadelphia, 4-0 against them throughout his career, makes that 5-0 on Sunday. All right, that brings us up to the divisional round. We're going to start with the NFC. Seahawks 49ers. Once you get into the playoffs, I usually go with the more experienced head coach and quarterback. When I did my preseason predictions, I said the 49ers were 1 year away from a deep playoff run. I still feel that way. Bottom line is, Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson have been in this spot many times before. Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G will be in their first playoff game. Experience matters in the postseason. These teams know each other well. Seattle should have beaten the Niners twice in the regular season. You can make the argument, had they not been fucked by the officials with the no call, pass interference in the end zone, they win that game Sunday night. I actually like the Seahawks to go into San Francisco in the divisional round, beat the 49ers, advance to the NFC Championship game. Saints-Packers. The knock on the Saints for years has been, this team can't win outside of the Superdome. Can't win in cold weather. That's not the case. New Orleans, this team in New Orleans is built for cold weather. Strong running game, great offensive line, best screen passing team in the league, strong front seven defensively. The Saints are a great road team. 7-1 on the road this season. Won games in Chicago, Tennessee, Tampa. The offense doesn't struggle on grass fields like they have in the past. I've been saying all season, the Packers are the worst 13-3 team in the league. The defense, inconsistent. Aaron Rodgers hasn't really looked like Aaron Rodgers on a consistent basis this season. Rookie head coach. This offense has to have running back Aaron Jones going to be successful. And the Saints have one of the best run defenses in the league. I like the Saints to go into Lambeau and beat Green Bay. All right, Texans-Chiefs. Much like New Orleans, Kansas City is tough to beat at home. Arrowhead Stadium is a tough place to go into and win. One of the knocks on Andy Reid throughout his career is that his teams tend to start strong in September, October, and fall off late in the season. That hasn't been the case with Patrick Mahomes under center. More importantly, though, the Chiefs' defense, which I've been questioning all year, has improved the last 5 or 6 weeks of the year. Chiefs are 7th in the league in points allowed. Since week 11, Kansas City's only giving up 11.5 points a game. I'll take Andy Reid over Bill O'Brien every single time in January. Chiefs over the Texans. Next up, Titans-Ravens. The Cinderella season ends for Tennessee and Baltimore. As good as Ryan Tannehill has been, the Titans don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with Lamar Jackson. The Ravens have the number 1 offense and the number 3 defense. I can't remember the last time that's happened in the NFL. Top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Baltimore has topped 30-plus points 8 times this season. The Ravens' backups beat the Steelers by 18 points last week, with Pittsburgh fighting for a spot in the playoffs. Ravens advance to the AFC Championship. All right, NFC Championship game, Seahawks Saints. The Saints find a way to get home field advantage the hard way. This would be Seattle's third straight game on the road, and their reward is traveling to the hardest place in the NFL to win. As far as coach and quarterback go, these two teams are virtually even. Offensively, I'd actually give the nod to Sean Payton over Pete Carroll. The big difference in this game would be the defense. The Saints' defense is much better than Seattle's. Drew Brees should be able to exploit the Seahawks secondary. Like I said earlier, the Saints are basically undefeated at home in the playoffs. Like the Saints to win this game and make it to the Super Bowl, which leaves us with the AFC Championship, Chiefs-Ravens. What an incredible matchup this would be. Battle of young quarterbacks, battle of the two quarterbacks that will lead the next generation of the NFL. I said it a couple of weeks ago. I don't see a team in the AFC that can beat the Baltimore Ravens. There hasn't been a team yet find a way to stop Lamar Jackson. The difference in this game is going to be the running game, something Baltimore excels at and the Chiefs struggle with. They rank 26th in the league defending against the run, 23rd offensively, and running yards per game. Their inability in the running game leads them to their second straight defeat in the AFC Championship game, which gives us a Ravens-Saints Super Bowl. It's been 10 years since New Orleans won their first Super Bowl. Where did it take place? Miami, which is the site of this year's Super Bowl. I think this matchup would be the best the NFL can offer this year. Young upstart Lamar Jackson against the veteran Drew Brees. On paper, the Ravens have the edge. You can't compare Lamar Jackson and Drew Brees because their styles are so different. But I think Baltimore's defense is better than New Orleans. I think the Super Bowl is going to come down to coaching. No shade to John Harbaugh. Excellent coach. But Sean Payton always comes up with something big in huge games. And it usually works. He had the fake punt in the first Super Bowl coming out of halftime against the Colts. That call completely changed the game. Gave New Orleans all the momentum in the second half after they trailed the entire first half. I said earlier that experience matters in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the experience. It's one thing to win big games in December or in the divisional round of the playoffs. It's another thing completely to win the Super Bowl when the entire world is watching. I think the Saints' experience, specifically that of Drew Brees over Lamar Jackson and Sean Payton's coaching, gives New Orleans the edge. Saints win the Super Bowl, send Drew Brees riding off into the sunset with 2 rings to cap off his Hall of Fame career. All right, that's my predictions for the playoffs. You can leave me a comment in the section below. Let me know whether or not you agree or disagree. That's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow with my NFL bets for Wild Card Weekend. I will probably have a pick for all 4 games. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. I will see you guys tomorrow.